Hello and welcome to the Data Career Academy podcast. This is a show dedicated to closing the information gap between data job seekers and hiring authorities about the challenging data analytics job market. My name is Albert Bellamy. I'm the host of the show. And it's my goal to highlight aspiring data analysts and their abilities in order to get them hired, to spotlight recent hires and how they successfully navigated the hiring process, as well as to find out from real industry experts what the job market looks like from the hiring side and how all of that can benefit you, the listener. So let's get into today's episode. All right, so my guest today is Stephanie Holman. Now, I'm not going to give her an extensive introduction. Full disclosure, I was recently a guest on Stephanie's podcast. So this is a pretty good get here with a new podcast. I'm getting a professional, real podcaster on my show. So I think I'm punching above my weight here. But Stephanie is a technical recruiter for a company called MetroStar. She focuses on the clearance space, on transitioning veterans. And Stephanie, the rest is up to you. Why don't you tell me about yourself?
Yeah. Hey, Albert. Hi, friends. Thank you so much for having me here. And this is fun, being in the hot seat on the reverse side since we had you on our podcast at
Hey.
MetroStar. And now I'm here, interviewing with you. So I'm Stephanie Holman. I've been in recruiting for a really long time, but I didn't start in technical recruiting. I actually started in higher education. I was a school guidance counselor first, then transitioned to higher
Wow.
education. Yeah, and recruiting in higher education, very different from technical recruiting. Although some of the foundational pieces of how folks apply and how your
Hmm.
resume is reviewed, some of those pieces are kind of the same, right? The language is a little bit different. So I'm excited to dive into these questions that you have today, Albert.
Absolutely. That was so. How long do you think you should take to answer Tell Me About Yourself if you're in an interview?
Oh gosh. I would say no more than maybe a minute 30,
Okay.
maybe. Yeah, my advice there is have your intro down, right?
Yeah.
Know your audience. Don't keep the hiring manager or whoever you're talking to too long, right? Just give them a brief overview of your career, maybe where it started, what jazzes you up today, and that you're excited to talk to them. Get in, get out, record yourself. Also, listen to yourself over and over again. The more
Yeah.
you do it, the better you're going to get.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, it's always cool to get kind of different perspectives on that. I usually tell people no more than 3 minutes, but yeah, you're
Yeah,
going
yeah,
half of that, so
yeah.
good.
And trust me, I say this as someone that when I remember starting my first interviews, I was like, well, I was born in Anchorage, Alaska. And like,
Yes.
oh, no, 20-year-old Stephanie, don't do that.
Yeah, you give me your
So,
origin story.
yeah,
Yeah, it was funny. I responded to someone today where they were talking about, don't belabor messages on LinkedIn. And one of the first ones I sent to a podcaster, as luck would have it, I gave him my life story. I mean, it was like
right.
5 paragraphs. And I refer back to that message on occasion saying, hey, this is the message that got me a very productive connection. Don't do this. Like,
Yeah,
I'm really
yeah.
lucky that he humored me and was nice about it.
Right, right. That's too
Yeah.
funny. I'm glad you saved that.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You gotta be able to make fun of yourself and the dumb things you did once upon a time.
Absolutely.
So we have a unique opportunity here because you are a recruiter. Tell me about your role in the hiring process. How does it start? What do you go out there looking for?
Yeah, so I recruit for a company called MetroStar, and I'm going to say it a certain way, and I only recruit for MetroStar. I think sometimes when you're on social media, you'll see a recruiting profile, and some folks just don't know if you represent only that one company or if you represent
Okay.
several, if you do coaching and all of that. So that's why I say I recruit for MetroStar and only MetroStar. So as a technical recruiter, what my charge is I am assigned to very specific positions, right? And based on those positions, I interface and I do an intake with the hiring managers to really understand what it is that we're hiring for. So I should be able to not only tell you a little bit about the position, the requirements, but like what makes the team exciting? What would get someone
Yeah.
excited about applying? Because I'm representing that team, right? In that conversation. So my role is really to know those, we call them requisitions inside and out, right? Know
Mhm.
what the team's looking for, and then be able to look at a resume and tell if the resume meets those requirements. So what am I talking about more specifically? The job description is going to tell you what you need in order to apply, right? And we'll talk about this probably later, but you have
Yeah.
to have that, you know, honest conversation with yourself as to
Hmm.
whether or not you meet those requirements, because someone on the other side, myself, that's looking at your resume is going, does this resume meet these job
Yeah.
requirements, right? Is there a match here? So once I see that, yes, there's enough information there, then I'm going to set up what's called a recruiter screening call. That's no more than 30 minutes to talk to that person one on one. The why behind the recruiter screening call. Sometimes people ask, like, well, why do I even have to talk to this recruiter, right? She's not
Yeah.
the hiring manager. I get it. But the why there is, number one, I'm saving the hiring managers their time, right?
Hmm.
They're at customer sites, they're building, they're doing a whole bunch of cool stuff. But as the recruiter, I'm getting that one-on-one conversation with you to fill in some of those gaps that might be on your resume, right? So if there's job requirements, let's say there's 10, and on your resume, I only visually see that you meet 7 of those, I'm still going to call you and I'm going to ask you about the 3 that are missing. And
Yeah.
that's where that conversation is really important. So that's just a very kind of high level, quick summary of what I do as a recruiter. And then once we have that conversation, if there's enough there, then I'll pass the resume and my notes to the hiring manager for their review. But I'm also an advocate, and I could
Yeah.
keep talking about this, but again, I'm trying to capture your information to tell my hiring manager that, hey, this person has enough experience that meets what you're looking for.
That's interesting. So you kind of have a dual purpose. So you're out there selling the company to those recruits, but you're also then you said you're an advocate, and it sounds like you're talking about being an advocate for the individual candidate to the
Yeah,
hiring
yeah.
candidate.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you touched on, the selling piece of it. Sometimes folks they get nervous about that, where
Yeah.
everything in life is sales. I think as a recruiter, you really have to believe in the product, your company, what you're representing. Because this is high stakes. When I'm talking to people about changing jobs, like, that's stressful.
Hmm.
Considering changing a job, it can change, your family dynamics if you're driving further. There's a lot of pieces to that. So yeah, it's my job to tell you more about the company overall, to get you interested, to see if there's a fit. Sometimes there's not, but it's also my job to advocate for you, and that's where those recruiter screening calls are so critical, because I want you relaxed and able to tell me more about your experience so I can capture it, right? I'm typing up notes, and
Yeah.
so I can get that to my hiring manager.
Now I don't know if you're going to want to answer this. This one's not on the script, but it just occurred
Uh-oh,
to me. So
uh-oh.
is the recruiter screening call, is this a judgment-free zone, or are they already kind of auditioning? I know you say you want them to be comfortable, but like where's the balance there?
Yeah, yeah. I don't like both of those words. Okay, so judgment free. Yeah, I
Yeah.
would say yes, if you're having a screening with me, Stephanie Holman, I'm not here to judge you, or
Okay.
I just want to know about your experience, right? And so the more comfortable I can get you is the better for me to be able to capture that. Now, is it an audition? Yes, I think it is, right?
Yeah.
Um I think there's technical things, experience related things that the recruiter is going to really zone in on. And then you have your behavioral aspects, right? And so if you have someone who is maybe abrasive or rude, or something else along those lines, I don't know how well I can advocate for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I suppose that goes along with believing in your product. So if you're believing in your company and advocating for that to recruits, you also have to believe in the person that you're bringing in.
Mhm.
And if you don't, yeah, that's gonna you don't want to advocate for that person to come into your company.
Right, right. I
Yeah.
mean, it makes it tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Told you it was going to be a tough question. So,
That was a good one.
like, you're out there, do you go out there and more look for people, or do you find that they come to you in some form and you're kind of processing, figuring out which ones to talk to?
Yeah, I would say it's more on the I go out and look for
Mm,
candidates. So just context, being a recruiter in the cleared space is very, very tough. It's very competitive. We're looking for individuals that have security clearances at very high levels. These
yeah.
are individuals that are very, very smart, right? They have options. They already have networks that are built. So if they for some of the senior level ones that I look for, if they were looking for a job, they probably already have a recruiting contact
Yeah.
or, folks in their network. But yeah, generally recruiters, we're using different systems like LinkedIn Recruiter and some others to find you, right? Based on your profile, keywords, all of those pieces. Now, some of us are leaning into social media more than others for, various reasons. And that's where, it's an assist, right? So people can
Hmm.
find you if they're looking for a recruiter. They might on the user end, they're typing in recruiter Washington D.C. and they might see my profile pop up. But I would say it's more me looking for you than you looking for me.
Yeah. Well, you're not tough to find.
Hopefully not.
If you're unaware, Stephanie is a prolific content creator. So
Ooh, I like
I know
that.
I respond to your content, so I tend to see it right off the bat.
Coming in the feed. Yeah.
But yeah, you can't. She's not difficult to locate. So I suppose that's probably a pretty good characteristic for a recruiter to have. So what in general are you seeing in the market? I know you're specific to the tech space. You're super specific to the cleared space. But if you can speak to the tech space writ large, what does the market look like to you?
It's tough. It's tough right now. Obviously, there's a lot of layoffs, right? And these layoffs have impacted individuals that have a lot of experience, and it's nothing that they did wrong. Maybe they didn't have enough
Yeah.
time in their position, and they just ended up on a list. It can literally be that simple. So I would say, from my perspective, it's very competitive now, right? For some of these positions, I would say definitely your mid-level engineering positions, you might have, a good number of applicants on there. And I know that folks are applying to a lot of roles and they're like, I think I'm qualified and why am I not moving forward? It might just be because there's 30 other people or however many
Yeah.
others that are applying for the same role and they're just equally qualified for it. Or maybe they applied, a few days ahead of you and they've already interviewed.
Yeah. Now, and a common complaint that I hear, and I'm sure you
Mhm.
hear it too, is there's a job that was posted 3 hours ago and there's 1,000 applications. Do you get hit with that volume at the recruiter level, or does that bottleneck kind of smack the hiring chain somewhere else?
Yeah, I hate I love your questions. So they're a little gray, right? It's not
Mhm.
it's not a black or white thing that I can really answer. When I've heard that comment from job seekers of like this job just opened and I'm seeing there's 1,000 applicants on it. Usually what they're talking about is a LinkedIn job posting, right? And there's been some posts about the realities of that. So from what I know, and maybe LinkedIn updated this, but when you click on a job posting on LinkedIn, that counts as an application when it's not really an application,
Oh,
right? It's not someone that actually followed through on the application. Amy Miller has talked about this. She's
see,
from
this is why I
from
need to do
Amazon.
podcasts because I'm learning already.
Yeah, and I started hearing that more and started seeing posts about it and I
Mhm.
tested it out myself and saw it for myself with
You
my
saw the
own
counter
eyes.
click up. Just
Yes, yeah, that
wow. Okay,
well, and
did
being
not
in
know
the
that.
position that I'm in, I'm able to look at that, on LinkedIn,
Mhm.
and then compare it to what is actually in my system. And it was not it totally different numbers.
Okay.
So I would say apply anyways. Don't shut the door on
Yeah.
yourself. Apply anyways.
Yeah. Yeah. Try not to get discouraged by that. I mean, who knows? Maybe you're even if there is 1,000 applicants, maybe you're the best. Could happen.
You do not know. You
Yeah.
do not know. And in the cleared world, we get a lot of applicants that are, they don't have a clearance, right? They
Yeah.
miss that piece. So that takes out a good chunk of individuals that right off the bat are not qualified. So I would never ever shut the door on yourself or just assume like, oh, it's over before. No.
Yeah.
Apply, get your application in there.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard staggering statistics, and I'm sure you've seen it, of the percentage of online applications that are just woefully unqualified.
Hmm.
And so can you talk about, and I don't think this was on the script either, but
No,
can
you're
you
good.
talk about the impact of the ATS? Because that is a hot topic for a lot of my followers. I know that you and I have both put things
Hmm.
out there about that, but what is your, if you could, Vulcan mind meld something about
Yeah.
knowledge about the ATS to every tech applicant out there, what do you want them to know?
I want you to know that a real recruiter, real human, is the one that is rejecting you. However,
Sounds so harsh.
I know, and we
Yeah,
don't. I just want to be clear. Like, I take no joy in that.
yeah,
I don't have get this like evil, smile. Like, there goes another one. No, like I want to find you, right? I have a job because you're looking for a job. But yeah, no, it's a real human that rejects applications. Now, sometimes folks will say, "Well, I applied to this role and I received a rejection email within 5 minutes," right? So how does that work, right? Valid point. What recruiters can do is we can set what's called knockout questions.
mm,
So if when you apply, again, context, cleared world, say there's a role that requires a secret clearance, right? And you don't have one, but you apply. I can set a rule in the system at the time of the application to ask you the question of, do you have a security clearance? If someone answers no to that, and this is very common in the cleared world, if
yeah.
someone answers no to that, then it can knock their application out. So it can
And so they get an automated rejection.
yeah,
Okay.
so you would get the automated rejection. So that's just an example. Different companies, will set different ones based on whatever it is that they're hiring for. So that just goes back to the criticalness of when you're applying for roles. Make sure that you actually are close to being qualified for that role.
Yeah.
Now, what does that really mean? You got to read the job description, right? Um, Read the job description, and because it's the job description is going to tell you everything that you need to have in order to be considered.
Yeah. Singing my song. Oh, love it.
Hmm.
So here's your chance to tell stories. What's the best thing you've ever seen a candidate do? Like something where you were just like, oh, like get in there. We need you.
Gosh, it's nothing life changing, but I
Yeah.
would just say having a good attitude goes such a long way, right? Taking rejection with grace. I can't say enough about that. We're all going to get rejected at some point. I've been rejected numerous times, applying for roles. It happens. But what I think sets some people apart is when you know they interview, they don't move forward, and they say, you know what, thank you for the time, I had a great experience or
Wow.
whatever, and I would love to keep in contact. If there's anything else that comes up, let me know. But then here's the thing, they also follow up, right? Of
Okay.
course I follow up. I can set different things in the system,
Now, how do they
as
follow up? Because I know that
just
there's, okay.
email, text.
Is it like a dating scene thing where it's like don't be creepy and like email the next day, but like a week later, or like what are we talking here?
Maybe not the next day. Yeah, give
Yeah.
it a little time.
Okay.
But I have so many success stories where someone did not make it in on the first try, and you know what? They didn't make it in on the second try, but they made it in on the third. And we were
Wow.
both intentional with maintaining that communication to see, what would come up in the future, because future positions come up. That's just the way it goes, right? There's going to
Yeah.
be other opportunities. So I would pause if you're being rejected and not just think like, okay, I can never apply to this company again. No, you can ask the recruiter, should I consider applying in the future? And based on what that recruiter says, that might give you some intel.
Yeah. And I know for me, toughest thing is to take that blow to your ego and wash it off. It's not personal.
Yeah, yeah.
I know
I
I
will.
can tend to be like, well, the heck with them. Like
Yeah,
they
I don't
rejected
like
me.
you either.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, try not to take it, super personal. The only other thing I'll add, the candidates that I see who do really, really well, right, in the
Mm,
interview, and they go to an offer, they have mastered their storytelling ability, right? Not fictional storytelling,
Yeah.
but they come in with using the STAR method, which most people know, right?
Yeah.
So if they're asked a question, again, these hiring managers, they're looking for data points to figure out whether or not you're going to be successful. So if you're being asked a question, start with the situation, what you were tasked with, the action steps that you took, and the result, right? And the
Yep.
result doesn't have to be perfect. Doesn't mean that you have to save the world and whatever. You can talk about not having a good result and then how
Oh
you
yeah.
reacted
What you
to that,
learned from it.
what you learned from it, right?
Absolutely.
So like I said, the candidates that I see that are the most successful, they have that STAR method down. It is
Yeah.
automatic, and they have practiced it over and over again with these different, just career experiences, let's say.
Yeah. Is there another tangent? Is there a technical way that you recommend? Is there an app or something like that that you recommend to practice giving answers? Or are you just a straight, stand in front of the bathroom mirror? Like, what do you recommend?
Yeah. If you can't look at you in the bathroom mirror and be able to rehearse this, that tells me you need to practice,
Yeah.
because that can unnerve just some people by themselves, right? Or even just being in the car and turning on the recorder and then forcing yourself to listen, to yourself. That
Mm-hmm.
it some don't want to do that, but I would say, yeah. As far as an app, no, I don't. I know there's apps out there. I'm just an old fashioned, like, just take your iPhone,
Just record it. Yeah.
just
Go
record
with
it,
that.
and then force yourself. Yeah, force yourself to listen to it, and
Yeah.
you're gonna pick up on things. I'm notorious for ums and ahs as space fillers. I'm still
For sure.
working on that as a speaker, so at least I'm aware of it, right? And that's half the battle, is just kind of being aware of how you maybe come across.
Yeah. Well, now you can pull transcripts from most of these things. So do a Zoom call, like you record
Oh,
it,
I
it'll
know,
give
I
you a
know.
transcript at the end. You'll see the ums and ahs in black and white. It's
You're like,
unnerving.
come on, Stephanie. Yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. So Sedway asks this, what's the worst story?
Yeah, so I have some, right? All recruiters
Of
do.
course.
I don't share those publicly, right?
Yep.
I don't think it's very helpful. Does it get a lot of, likes and interest and comments? Of course it does, right? Of course it does. Some of them are fun, right? But at the heart of it, I think with recruiting, sometimes we're seeing folks just at their worst,
Yeah.
right? They've been out of work for a long time. They're not showing up, as they're the best version of themselves, and that can come out in different ways. You might have someone really upset or whatever. That happens. It's a human experience, and I just want to respect that, right? I would
Yeah.
hope that someone would give me grace under similar circumstances. So that's my position on it. I've got some good ones, but
Yeah.
you'd have to, come over to dinner and two glasses of wine. You got to be in
Yeah.
for those. Yeah, but just not my jam.
Absolutely. She's relentlessly positive, folks. This is the recruiter you want on your side for sure. So how about this? We'd already talked about the ATS and
Yep.
what people misbelieve or the kind of flawed conventional wisdom out there with that.
Mhm.
What is, aside from that, what's the biggest misconception you find from people about the hiring process, about recruiting?
Yeah, you know, it's not just you that's being interviewed. You are interviewing these companies as well, from the jump, from the job description to
Yeah.
the recruiter interaction to the hiring interaction. So I think sometimes we miss that because we're moving really, really quickly. And of course, yes, we want to land the job. We want to do this. We want to prepare and all that. But are we slowing down and asking ourselves, like, is this really the company for me? Is this really
Yeah.
the role for me? There's a lot of other things that I could talk about, but the reason why this one is important to me is that, again, when I go back to the profile of my most successful candidates, right? That they they seamlessly move through the hiring process. They go to offer. They are confident. They know
Hmm.
what they want and they know what they don't want, right? And so they also know, um, they have the confidence to ask the questions that they want during the recruiter screening. Some recruiters they're going to be like me. They're super transparent. I want to answer your questions up front, right out of the gate. I don't want to waste your time. And then there's other recruiters who they're professionally developing too. Like, you don't know where
Yeah.
they are on their journey, and they might not know um, to give you certain pieces of information or to ask you certain questions. And so, again, going back to the profiles of these folks that are pretty successful moving through, like, they're coming in with their own agenda too, right?
Yeah.
They're prepared and they're saying, hey, I've got, these 10 things are important to me. Do you mind answering this? Right. And if a recruiter doesn't know, that's okay. Not everybody's going to know, but I would think a good recruiter would say, like, hey, I don't know, but let me find out.
Yeah.
Right.
That's funny. You took that in a whole different direction than I thought it was going in the first part,
Yeah.
because when you started talking about asking questions, I immediately thought, oh, okay, yeah, the questions at the end of the interview. Do you have any questions for us? You don't want to leave that blank and say, nope, I'm good. You took that to, hey, you're job shopping. You don't need
Yeah.
to take the first thing that comes along and assume that it's going to be the only thing that comes along, because it probably won't be.
Right.
You can be discriminating as well as a person being interviewed, and that job, whether or not they want you, that may not be the right thing for you, and asking questions is the way you figure that out.
Right. And to be a little dramatic here, I always say, like, I am getting paid to talk to you.
Hmm.
You are not. This is up to 30 minutes of your time out of your schedule. You might be, using your lunch break to do it. You might be taking
Yeah.
PTO from your current job. You might be, asking a friend to watch your kid for a minute while you talk to me.
Hmm.
So really, like, let that sink in. This is your time to learn about the company, ask the questions that you have. I don't want someone ever getting on a call with me and being intimidated, like they can't really ask what they want to know.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, so what do you think is the biggest thing? You talked about positive attitude,
Mhm.
obviously. What do you think is the biggest thing, if we can get a little more technical? What's the biggest thing that most job seekers can do to make a difference in the hiring process?
Yeah, so I would say, tech related, if there is something, a tool, technology, or something that is a requirement of the job that you
Mm.
do not have, right? But you got to that next stage of either a recruiter screening, or you're doing an interview with the hiring manager. Be prepared to address that, right?
Yeah.
Again, going back to the job description, it's going to tell you exactly what it is that the team is looking for. So
Hmm.
if you don't have, experience with Splunk, for instance, then what do you have experience with,
Yeah.
right? And if you don't have experience with something similar to that, do you know what Splunk is? Do you know what that does? Right. So again, be prepared to talk about that. And I've had candidates that have been successful, who didn't have a specific tool, but they knew what it was. And
Hmm.
then they were also working on something maybe in their home lab, right? And so what that shows the hiring team is motivation, right?
Yep.
Does this person have that internal motivation, not Albert or Steph saying, hey, go do this now, but like, you just picked it up and ran with it, and figured out, okay, I want to, I want to learn something. I want to learn a skill. Like, so how are you doing that? And that's something I've seen some candidates do really well with.
Yeah. Speaking of shortfalls, what do you usually ask about a date gap? What do you consider a date gap? How do you like candidates to address that
Are you specifically talking about like employment gaps or?
on a resume? Yeah, if you see 6 months on there and it's within the last couple of years, like do you have a criterion by which you say, hey, this is something we need to address? And there are there kind of smaller gaps where you're like, the admin friction.
Yeah, I'm on team let's talk about it. I try never to assume
Yeah.
anyone's story, right? And I'll give you an example of this. So I stayed with a university for almost 9 years, right?
Mhm.
And when I went to transition on to my next role, I had some hiring managers that questioned that, right? A lot of people think about short term stints with employers, but there's
Yeah.
this other side, right, where if you're there too long, people are like, well, what's going on
You're
here?
hidebound.
Right. Well, what
Yeah.
was going on there is I was a military spouse and I had two small kids, very, very small kids. And I was
Yeah.
trying to keep my career together by the skin on my teeth. And it just made sense to stay somewhere where I was well respected, supported. I could be a mom. I could still have my foot, um, in the door career wise. But someone just seeing my resume, they would never know that story. They'd
Yeah.
never know that. They would maybe just assume, like many did, of like, oh, she got comfortable and then, promoted up and didn't want the challenge of learning a different organization. Sure, that's one way to look at it. Or I'm not going to say it, but like I felt like a
Yeah.
complete, bad A for maintaining my family, maintaining my career at the same time and being
Yeah.
able to do that.
Well, you
So
should.
yeah. So going back to your question, when I look at a resume and I maybe see gaps there, let's talk about it. Let's talk about your career and how you've moved in your career, what you're looking for next. I never want to assume someone's story.
Yeah. The thing that I always tell my clients and students is you want to go on offense.
Hmm.
And so great that you address that. Hey, make no assumptions. You're making no assumptions about the candidate, but as candidates, make no assumptions that there's something in there that you're hiding that they're not going to notice, or like you said, a skill shortfall, a date gap. You want to go in there and
Right.
address it head on. Elephant in the room. Hey, I was out of work for a year. I was driving
Yep.
an Uber because I retired under this is actual story of a buddy of mine,
Hmm.
retired under super adverse circumstances where he felt done dirty by the service and he needed to get his head together before he planned his next move. He drove an Uber for a year and watched his son play sports. And that
Yeah.
was I was jealous of him. I was like, that sounds amazing. But
And there's nothing wrong with that. I
yep,
mean, that's respectable. Awesome. So you figured out a way to still have income coming in while you figured out your next professional moves. Like there's nothing wrong with being an Uber driver. Uber
yeah,
drivers, fast food,
that's hard
all that
work.
stuff. It is, and it makes the world go round. If
Yep,
they're not there doing that even for a short period of time, who's left? I have a lot of respect for that. But
yeah,
like you said too, getting ahead of your story, I think is fine. If you're having interviews and you suspect that a gap of employment or a short stint is an issue and challenge for you moving forward, but nobody's telling you that, then yeah, I'd go into that conversation and say, hey, I took 6 months off here, or I was laid off, or, own your story.
yeah. Well, and it sounds like you're also kind of greasing the wheels for them getting in and saying, hey, you might want to address this in the interview. But again, judgment free zone, it's not, you're not screening them out for that. You're passing them along if they're qualified
Yeah,
candidates.
ultimately a hiring manager, what they're concerned with is can I retain this person
Yeah.
for a specific length of time? That's it.
Yep.
That's their main question, right? So can I retain this person for a year? Can I retain them for 2 years? That's really the question at the heart of it.
We're, we're like laser focused right
I
here.
know, I know. I think we were
Absolutely.
separated up for
Probably. So I do want to touch on, obviously I'm retired Marine. You are a service member and a military spouse, so props for both of those. What shortfalls specific to the veteran space do you see in career skills? What are we hurting for that, if you could specifically address veterans, hey, take care of this or get your head into this space
Mhm.
coming out before you get into the job market, what would that be?
Oh gosh, there's so much. Okay, so number one, I think you definitely have to take care of yourself physically and mentally
Mm,
before you separate or shortly after. Right? Our service members, they've been through a lot of stuff. Right? Deployed,
yep.
they're still dealing with injuries, that sort of thing. Take care of yourself before you go charging into the next thing. Right? Because all it's going to do is just wait for you and then say like, okay, you got to deal with this issue. Take care of your
And
VA.
no employer wants to be cutting you loose for like extensive physical therapy, especially when you've got that covered.
Mhm.
Yeah, you want to have that but as behind you as you can.
Absolutely, absolutely. So take care of your stuff. And then I would say also take a pause and really figure out what you want to do. A common thing or common story that I run into a lot when I'm working with veterans is that, they separated and then they went hard charging into the next thing. A year later, they figured out,
Hmm.
like, I really don't like this next thing
Yeah.
at all. So there was no kind of mindful pause of, what do I really want to do? And now there's realities behind that situation. I mean, financially, people have to survive. I get it. I'm not
Yep.
saying that that's easy, but at some point in your journey, really sit down and ask yourself those hard questions like, what would I really like to do? And then beyond that, have you actually talked to people in those positions? Have you done the work? Have you reached out to 3 to 5 people to find out like how their journey went? Do they really actually like their job? Because maybe you learn more
Yeah.
about it and you're like, I don't want to be a program manager. That sounds awful, right? So there's that, right? And then when it comes to your actual resume, I do think you need to tailor your resume. I know it
Yep.
can be cumbersome, but again, if you know what you want to do and you're laser focused, you've talked to people, right? So you know or have access to their resume, what made a difference for them, then I think it'll be a lot easier versus kind of like the shotgun blast of just resumes here, there, all these roles
Yeah.
that you're not, really interested in. The last thing is just again being able to translate your skills and tell your story, which just comes down to practice.
Yeah. Yeah. That translation piece is so huge. And
Hmm.
it's not just, I think people kind of slow roll it. They downplay it by thinking it's just happy to glad. It's, I was a battery commander and now I have to say I was an operations manager.
Hmm.
It's so much more than that. It's what is valued. I see so many people just cutting and pasting their fitness reports or their performance reviews
Hmm.
into their resume, and they're talking about, I was responsible for $10 million worth of trucks. It's not valuable. It's
Hmm. Hmm.
That's not significant. The things that got you promoted and got you pats on the back in the military, by and large, are not necessarily the same things that matter in the civilian world. So
Hmm.
love that you hit on the informational interviews, because you got to get out there and talk to people that have been out for a bit and have seen kind of the error of their ways when they were transitioning and have
Hmm.
learned those lessons.
Yeah, and you have to do the work, and this is why like
Yeah.
I'm a big supporter of yours because you preach that, right? It's like you got to do the work. Don't expect somebody else to do the work for you because of uh my presence on LinkedIn. I do get a lot of in mails from military that are getting ready to separate saying, hey, can you review my resume? And it might be for a totally different industry. It's not even tech, right? And so
Hmm.
I'll look here and there, but what I very quickly realized is like they didn't spend a lot of time on it at
No.
all. And you're going to get stronger and more powerful and all these amazing things if you do the work, right?
Yeah.
I'm not asking anybody to do my resume. I know how to do that, right? Because I've done the work, I've
Hmm.
tripped through it over and over and over again. We also have things like ChatGPT that are at our disposal now.
Yeah.
So now you can put, the job description into ChatGPT. You can add your resume. You can say, does this speak to it? Right. And then go through those things. Those tools are out there, they're available. That said, don't just fly blind. I know you
Yeah.
cannot shut me up, Albert. Don't
No, I
fly
was just gonna
blind.
say, hey, ChatGPT can also give you the way wrong answer,
The
so
worst.
you gotta know what you're looking
Yes.
for.
Yeah, so you have to QC like the product
Yes.
on the opposite end because what I've seen very rarely, but I've seen it is where someone has this beautiful resume, they get past me, right? Cuz I'm
Yeah.
not an engineer, I don't pretend to be. Don't do it.
But
But
then the tech questions come.
then it comes or the hiring manager is like, "Oh, Albert, so you did blah blah blah," and deer in headlights. The person
Yes.
cannot speak to it because they didn't write their resume or they
Hmm.
didn't QC, what ChatGPT gave them or whatever. So
Yeah.
uh just be cautious when you're doing that.
Yep. AI, large language model. It's gonna go back through all the languages it has, and it's gonna give you something that it thinks looks like a good resume. It may or may not be your resume, but
Right. Yeah.
somebody's.
Right.
Yeah. So you're a big content creator. I am also a content creator. Who is, present company accepted, who is someone that you respect as a content creator? Any platform, doesn't have to be our Lord and Savior LinkedIn. But who's a content creator that you follow and learn things from?
You. You. I'm not going to go with anybody else. You
Aw,
are one of the main reasons that I follow you is you are an active practitioner. You get in there every single day. Every single day, right? You're putting out content and you're learning alongside the people that you're trying to help, right? I have this quote. It's actually I'm going to look down because it's in my office, but it says real builders build anyways. And what that means is that you build tired. You build when the road is unclear.
mhm.
You build when you're anxious. You just build. Real builders build. They're never ready. And so I surround myself now with individuals that are doing the same thing, right? I don't take criticism from anyone that is not in the arena doing it with me. We've both gotten not so great, just weird messages on LinkedIn, like attacking
Yes.
our looks or, whatever. Those are kind of hurtful. But now it just bounces off me because I'm like, no, 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 no. You're not in the arena. Once
Yeah.
you start building, you start, putting your time and skin in the game, then you can come and criticize me. So yeah, I would say I highly respect what you're doing. You've gotten yourself into rooms, I'm sure, just by reaching out, making those connections. You've done speaking events, you're helping folks break into data. I think it's just super cool.
Yeah. Some would say my whole career has been built on my ability to schmooze my way into rooms,
Yeah.
but yeah,
or
which is
or kick.
hilarious because I'm not naturally that kind of person. So it's kind of funny that at the end of my career,
Yeah.
I suddenly got good at making friends and talking to people. It's weird.
Yeah, well, and it doesn't happen on accident either.
No,
And so
no, it takes work.
it takes work. Yeah, and when
Yes.
I tripped upon your page, I was like, okay, let me scroll. Let me keep scrolling. Okay, this guy's like he's in it, right? You're
Cool.
in it, right? So yeah, it's you. People
Thank
like you.
you. I appreciate you. Well, so let's land the plane here. How can people find you? Obviously, you are everywhere on LinkedIn, but do you have anything else that you want to pitch, or are you trying out a different platform? What are we working on
Yeah,
here?
yeah. So I am not trying out a different platform. LinkedIn, social media accounts, they take a lot of work, right? A lot of work. And then obviously we try to put out good information that just helps the masses and you get inquiries and emails. And I'm just one person. There's no like marketing team or there's no team behind it. So
Yeah,
you can find me on LinkedIn. If you send me a message, it might just take a couple days for me to respond to it. But a lot of my content, it comes from those direct messages. It comes from the comments. I always want to show up and bring people value. So all of my stuff now is geared towards like what people actually need, folks that are actively in the cleared space and those that are trying to break in.
nice. Well, that pretty much puts a bow on it. Stephanie, you have definitely classed up the show. I'm punching way above my weight having you on as a guest. This is going to be hard to top, but I definitely appreciate you being here with us. And yeah, we'll let you know when this is going out.
Yeah, love it. Thanks for having me, Albert. Take care.
Thanks, Stephanie. Friends, thanks for joining me for a great show. If you'd like to hear more, I'll have the guests' contact info in the show notes below. If you'd like to get involved with Data Career Academy and find out more about what we do, please visit my website, themajordata.com. Or you can join my LinkedIn group for exclusive free content and first looks at what I'm working on. With that, Semper Fidelis, and I'll talk to you later.